Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks.
Right?
Hello. Today is my
Mhm.
day because Santi Faus is with me. Hi, Santi. How are you?
Doing well, Irene. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is pleasure is mine because you mentioned when we spoke like previously that old go-to-market playbook, all right, is not exactly what we want to be talking about today. And in the audience, we have entrepreneurs, we have enterprise leaders, we have people who just curious, right, about this new world that's
Yeah.
evolving in front of us, all right? Could you
hmm
please educate us first, right? What is old go-to-market playbook and why are we revisiting now?
Absolutely. And when we're speaking of go to market in this sense, we're speaking of corporate businesses. So not so much, restaurants and because they have a completely different strategy than B2B service based businesses. So the old go to market playbook was to hire a team of SDRs and have them do the research on their own, have them call up prospects, book them onto the calendar. Then above that, you have a team of account executives, and they basically close the deals that the SDR set for them. So that was what, and that still works at an enterprise level, but that was the old playbook.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Could you please step into what's changing and what you, as a founder and CEO at MaribouPartners, actually, what are you spending your days on? Meaning, I guess there is
Yeah.
something next that comes into play, complementing old playbook.
Absolutely. So, with the way technology's changed and the way just social media has taken over the way we operate as humans as a whole, right? Like we're spending 8 hours a day on average on our phone. So we're spending a lot of time on our phone. And in the corporate space, your buyers are sitting on LinkedIn. And so a lot of people will treat LinkedIn just like it's a job posting forum or a business forum. They use it to get a new job. They use it to announce their wins, but they don't really do much other than that. But what they are doing is they're scrolling a lot. And so what we're seeing is LinkedIn is that 1% of users on LinkedIn are daily creators. And what that means is that most people are just scrolling. And so instead of with the old go to market playbook where you go do outbound, right? What is happening on LinkedIn is buyers are forming a short list of people who they like, who they enjoy seeing on their feed. They're forming a short list. So when a problem that they speak of arises, then they know who to call because they've seen you consistently on their screen. They've developed a relationship with you to some extent because when you're cold calling, right, you're building relationships, but you can only do that one cold call at a time. With LinkedIn, Irene, I can make a post, right, and it can get 100,000 views, and I could shake hands with 100,000 people virtually. So that's what's changed on the social media front. On the go-to-market side, when I consider social media part of the overall go-to-market strategy, but on the more pure outbound strategy, right? Like I said, they used to have SDRs cold call, cold email businesses. We're still doing that, right? We're just letting AI do the heavy work so that the human team can focus on what matters most, which is building relationships. So it's sharpening the targeting, it's sharpening the outreach, it's sharpening the messaging, and it's really just pretty impressive to see what the tools can do today.
Hey, you just helping me. You bridging to the elephant in the room here. Okay,
Yeah,
you mentioned the AI word. All right, what do
yeah,
you mean by it? Because I'm overwhelmed. Basically, the knowledge that actually popping at me on LinkedIn is one of the
yeah,
examples, right? On all the agentic stuff, on things that we should be doing, and we're doing, right? We're all evolving, we're all learning. So, what
yeah.
do you think is happening? But that's changing everything we do and even work with.
Everything. So what do I think is happening, like with AI as a whole, or with
From your angle, right? What you see happening. I mean, what you're part of in a lot of ways.
yeah. So from my specific area of expertise, which is primarily the go to market side, what we're seeing is teams are leveraging AI to warm up prospects, right? The
Mhm.
the old way of doing it where you would just call people up, you're just shooting shots in the blue. So what we're using is we're running, excuse me, we're running AI through the internet and we're picking up on signals. So whether people are talking about your business on Reddit, that's a great signal. We want to know who's talking about us and we want to get in front of them, right? And also, for my business, right? If someone's hiring salespeople, that's a great way for me to know that they're in need of my service, as opposed to just spraying and praying at a million businesses. I know that these people are hiring sales because they want more sales, right? So they're hiring sales reps. So I know if I can reach out to them and I can beat the offer of the sales rep, then that's an easy conversation for me and an easy client. And not to mention, it's a win-win because they get more sales at a fraction of a cost, and we get to show another client the beauty of AI and go to market today. So yeah, from our aspect, it's sharpening up AI, is sharpening up a lot of stuff. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, Irene.
Absolutely. What I hear is basically we're shifting from volume, like you said, right,
Yeah.
to intent and
Yeah.
signal-based go-to-market signals, right? Is company hiring certain roles, right? Is company changing their content even, right? What does it signal to the interested prospect? So how does it work? Could you please describe the scenario, maybe even workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I want to say one thing before I really jump into it. I still think volume works. I think I'm a big fan of running multiple campaigns, right? So I would do a volume approach on the target audience, but I would also be running a signal based outbound, because when people think of the volume approach, a lot of people think you're just spamming people. But Irene, the nature of humans when we receive a cold email is we just look at it on our phone, put it down, don't remember the name, don't remember what it says. We move on in a matter of seconds. So we still do volume based. We want to touch our target audience once every quarter, but at the same time, the signal base is where we're going to get the best responses. And so our specific workflow is, and it depends on the signal, because there's internal signals and there's external signals. So for external market-based signals, we're always listening to the market in terms of content. We're listening to what our audience is responding to, like what posts are going viral that our target audience is responding to. Also, what competitors of ours are doing better than us online. We're listening to all those signals with Trigify. And then at the same time, we're using Trigify to listen to the signals on the market. So hiring, promotions, funding rounds, job changes, anything in those regards. It can even get as granular as technology adoptions. That data is public, and we're always listening to it. And so we'll listen to it with Trigify, and then we will integrate that with Surf, and Surf scrapes the internet for their email and it validates it at the same time. And from there, or right before that, we'll see, like, because when you're listening to the market, you really want to classify if this is a good signal or a bad signal. So we'll give the AI parameters and it'll classify it, and then we'll scrape the email, and then we'll automate the outreach to them. But at the same time, because I'm a big believer in AI, I'll never say anything against it in business, but a lot of companies stop right there. I think the best next step is not only to automate the email outreach, but you spent so much time getting that signal, or not time, but expertise in coding that to get the signal, right? We would send that to our SDR team so they can cold call them too, just because that yields the best responses. And in the age of AI, I still think the human relationships are the most important thing in business.
Oh, totally. And of course, we're enhancing ourselves, our brilliance, hopefully, whatever is left in us, right? With new AI capabilities, right? Just to make us better. So, Santi, what about some examples, all right? Hopefully some successes that you've seen with your clients. We don't need client names, but some kind of project, right? That went well in terms of, right, very well planned, executed, and just showing these new modern go-to-market systems.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. We have tons of examples on our website, but there's one I'm particularly fond of because it was a bookkeeping firm out of Utah, right? And they had no outbound in place, no marketing systems in place. And we were talking to her and we looked at her business and we were like, hey, there's so much opportunity here, because bookkeepers can work with anyone, right? Any business in America is a client of a bookkeeper. So what we did is we scraped a list that most go-to-market engineers weren't scraping. A lot of go-to-market engineers are going straight from Apollo, right, and scraping from there. What we were doing is we were scraping a different way, and we were enriching it with Clay, and scraping Google Maps, scraping Facebook, scraping Instagram, the companies who aren't always being hit up. And we did a very niche industry. So we did cannabis companies in that space. And she was getting 8 to 15 appointments every single week. It was mad. She couldn't even handle all the business that was coming through. So that was one of my favorite examples. And I think that's kind of, when I say that story, like, I think the meaning behind it is that a lot of people are using the same AI tools. So when you're thinking of AI and go to market, you want to be a little bit creative and not always take the easiest route, and maybe look at the problem and where it resonates the most, and see how you can get ahead of them best.
Fabulous, but I'm sure in your experiences, you've seen some disasters. Okay. I love asking my guests about disaster scenarios. Again, we're not pointing fingers, we're all learning, right? And we all want to
Yeah.
do the best. But please describe the scenario that you hopefully saw, or even was, a part of it, when not everything went as planned. Okay. And maybe old go to market is still very much relevant, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
but where new
No,
approaches were not exactly implemented the right way, and what can we learn from it?
absolutely. So early on when I started the agency, when you find out something works, you double down on it, right? So we decided to take on clients outside of the accounting industry, and we signed a client who's an AI consultant, and um, their primary ICP, the people they want to get in hold of, were CIOs of higher companies. And so what happened is we tried every tactic in the book with cold email. Now with LinkedIn, we can get results, but that takes a little bit longer. But with cold email, we tried every tactic in the book, and we sent out 8,000 emails and didn't get a single, not only a positive response, but a negative response either. And it was the first time that's ever happened to me. I've sent out over close to 10 million emails. That's the first time that's ever happened to me where we ran a campaign and not only didn't get a good response, but didn't get a bad response either. Because typically when you do that, someone's over there like, hey, stop emailing me and whatnot. But what we realized is that there are so many security gateways, technology gateways in these CIO positions from people reaching out to them. So we kind of realized that for more enterprise level clients, the old go-to-market playbook is a lot better. Yeah.
How would you apply new go-to-market to these scenarios? Because I know CIOs are very hard to reach. Okay, like you said, they
Yeah.
have layers and layers, right, of
Mhm.
help that exactly protecting their time, right? So you got to be respective, right, as much as you want the attention. So how in new go-to-market playbook you attract that attention now?
Exactly. And when you think about cold email, Irene, a lot of times when you receive a cold email, it's someone trying to sell you something. Very
Oh yeah.
rarely do you ever get a cold email as a business owner and it's something not them pitching their service. So the psychology behind it is when someone receives a cold email, they're like, their sales guard instantly goes up and they're instantly like on guard. They're like, oh, this person's trying to sell me something, shut down, whatever you have to say, doesn't matter. Right. So you want to engage your prospects in a way that's much more disarming. And that's where LinkedIn content plays in so beautifully. Because when people are used to seeing you on the feed and they like your content, right? And we're not guessing who likes our content. Like it's all based on the AI tools we're using, because we're constantly observing the market. So when they see content they like, they're slowly forming a short list of people they want to work with. And so from there, you would monitor different signals. Hey, are they liking my post? Are they looking to engage with me? Are they, viewing my profile? Like anything like that, like, that's a signal. And that's a more warm introduction, because from a cold email, there's no profile behind it. There's nothing. It's just a cold email with a name and a pitch. But with LinkedIn, there's a profile behind it. And typically, if they're going to your profile or they're liking your post, or they commented on it, they have read your whole post, if not multiple posts. So it's a lot more warm and there's a lot more trust there. So their guard is less up. So that's how you would go around that. But what I will say, Irene, is, there's no perfect strategy, right? It's marketing, it's creative, right? So the one con to that is that content marketing is a slow growth
Yeah,
tactic.
yeah, yeah.
Content marketing is just such a slow growth tactic. You're not going to post for a full month and get a lead. It it compounds over time. But once you've consistently posted and posted in a strategic manner, then you get those results, right? So that's why we do cold email and we do content. So we let the cold email get the quick wins, and we let the content slowly compound over time until you're getting an audience and a solid flow of inbound leads.
Wow, you kind of stepped into my next question already,
Yeah.
because I wanted to cover a little bit practical implementation. Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of where should B2B founders and leaders start in terms of, right? We presume they know marketing basics, right? With they know handoff, right, from marketing to sale, the kind of
Yeah.
traditional model, right? So where should they start in terms of, they have missions, right? They have budgets, they have day-to-day jobs, and those
Absolutely.
transformations are not easy. All right. So let's help them out.
Absolutely. So the first thing you should do is automate your outbound, right? And so if you're a B2B founder and you don't know who you want to work with, then you got to take a few steps back, right? But if we're speaking to, the common B2B founder who has an ICP, who has a business that has clients and case studies, but they're looking to get more or things are stalling, right? The first thing I would do would be get a list of my whole ICP, right? And I would get everything on them. Like I would want to know how many employees they have, what kind of technology they're using, if they've been funded recently. I would want to get their phone number, email, mobile number. I would want to get all the information, and you can enrich it later with more specific data points. But for a basis, I want to get all the information on them. And then from there, I'd want to automate the outreach, right? But I would start small, because what you do is you test and then you optimize and then you scale. So you don't want to just blast off emails and burn your domains right away. What you'd want to do is start off sending about, depending on the audience size. And obviously, Carl Jung said this: everyone's the case to every rule. Same goes with businesses. Everyone's the exception to every go-to-market strategy. But yeah, I would want to be sending anywhere from like 400 to 600. And once you really find a copy, and when I say copy, I mean a hook, an offer, and a call to action that works, then I would optimize for sending more of those, and then I would scale to at least 1,000 emails a day, and that can happen within 90 days. And at that point, I would say by day 120, your cold email is completely optimized. And on the flip side, I wouldn't just leverage that. I would also be trying to post at least 3 to 6 times a day or a week on LinkedIn. And I would use the same signal. I'd pay attention to the list that we downloaded. I'd pay attention to who they're engaging with. If there's a common follower or a common person in your niche who they all follow, I would look at them. I would look at their content, and I would try and emulate that, and not in a copying and pasting way, right? Like I said, every person is the exception to every rule. Irene, your story is completely unique to anyone else on this earth, and so is every founder's, right? So just seeing what they're doing that's working and making it your own. And I would start with both of those two. And I could go a lot more in depth on the specifics about each one, but at a high level, prioritize outbound and content at the same time.
You know what? I want to encourage our listeners and our audience, okay, to reach out to Santiago Faus, okay? You see, he is a wealth of wisdom here, okay? And this is all tried and proven approaches, okay? He's seen successes. He's seen, I'm sure, some disappointments, but he and his team, here to help. Absolutely. What about some common mistakes? All right. You've seen this happening. Yeah. I asked you about disasters before, but when people trying to modernize their go-to-market, right? What about some mistakes we have to warn them about?
Oh man, where do I start, Irene? There's so many out there. And I'm always amazed when I take a consultation with a different business, what they're doing wrong.
Name a few, exactly.
Oh yeah. So I would say one thing is with cold email, right? What a lot of people are doing is they're getting a list, and they're probably like asking Claude to get them a list, or asking ChatGPT, give me the emails of these companies, or even worse and more vaguely prompted, give me company names and emails of people in this industry, right? Being as simple as possible. And you don't know what you don't know. You're always blind to your blind spot. So they don't really know that there's better options out there. But yeah, doing something like that, and then they load it into their CRM, their HubSpot, their Salesforce, and they would just blast out that whole list of unvalidated emails into from one business domain. And when Google sees that or Outlook sees that, it immediately knows it's a spam. They're spamming people because no email is sending out 5,000 emails a day. And so their whole domain is cooked. Like it's burned. So at that,
Goodness. Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point, like if you're a client, right, and I send you a document, I'm going to send it over. You're going to be like, Santi, where is it? And I'm going to be like, check spam. Your domain is burned. All your emails are going to land in spam. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see. And I would say another big mistake is, and this kind of goes both ways, either no content on the LinkedIn or really bad content on LinkedIn. And when I say really bad content, what I mean is that you obviously didn't put in any effort into it. You didn't take the time to understand what your ICP cares about, what their problems are. What you did is you did the same thing you did with cold email, and you put something into ChatGPT, write me a inspirational LinkedIn post about cold email, right? And then you just throw it up there. And that hurts your brand even more than not posting. So I would say those are just two of the most common mistakes I see when I enter in a business. And I could go a lot more in depth on like the cold email side or the content side, but yeah, at a high level, those are the two biggest mistakes I see.
Let's touch on content, because it seems like
Okay.
everyone is chasing that prize, because
Yeah,
good content can do miracles, and
they
yet
can.
it doesn't happen every day. So what are your approach to this? I mean, what kind of advice can you give?
Yeah. And here's another reason why I would say the old go-to-market playbook is dead and there's a new one coming, is that content used to be passed to the most junior person in the room. It was an intern task. It was for someone right out of college. And it was just like pushed off to the side. And it was never really taken seriously. And the business's results showed for that. But now what we're seeing is content is the first thing your buyers see about you, right? It's your first impression on them, and bad first impressions are really expensive. So when you have a junior level or even worse, AI just completely, and I'll never say not to use AI, but when you just lazily used AI to write your content, that reflects yourself out there. So I think what we're seeing now is that people are treating content more of an executive level task, as it should be, because it is the face of your brand. And, specifically with LinkedIn, Irene, is with their content, they forget that it's a business or that they forget that it's a social media. They treat it like it's a business forum. So when you're thinking about, humans, and we're on our phones all day, right? Like, I have so much more interesting stuff to scroll through on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, your social media of choices. You have to post something really entertaining for me to actually read your post on LinkedIn, or have to know you really well to choose that over all the more entertaining stuff over there. So when you're treating it like a job forum or a business forum, and you're just posting updates about your company, right? People are scrolling past you in half a second and never giving you any more attention, or definitely never giving you any more trust or considering you as a prospect or as a potential client, someone they want to work with. So what we're really seeing that's working is story-based content, right? Things that really speak to people. And there's a lot of the psychology that we look at, just like if I came up to you, Irene, and I was like, my business made 100K last month. You'd be like, all right, what are you talking about? And, why are you telling me this? Why are you sharing me this? But if I came up to you, Irene, and I said, man, the past 6 months, we didn't make a single dollar, but last month we made 100K. You'd be like, let's go. And it's kind of that simple psychology of sharing a vulnerability and then sharing the solution. And that's what we're really are seeing is working. And when you match that with monitoring your ICP with Trigify, with a phenomenal AI tool that I will recommend over and over and over again, matched with recording your sales calls with Fathom AI and using Claude to get those objections. When you monitor those, and then you also bring in your personal story, right? You have a unique story, Irene. Founders have a unique story. And when you pair all those together, you get quality content. And then from there, it's just leading them into a call to action, leading them into a book call. And that is how we're seeing content perform successfully.
Goodness, you almost
Yeah.
stepped into my next point about balancing automation with human touch. All right.
Yeah.
So use automation, right? That's what I hear from you, right? Use all
Yeah.
the tools. Question is, right, where to apply human touch and what exactly it should be to be relevant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about it on the outbound side, we want to apply human touch at the first moment of interest. So the first moment of interest, if I'm automating my DMs, right? When I get a reply, I want to send a voice note. I want them to hear my voice because they get more familiar with you on a different level. If I'm sending out cold emails, I want to apply human touch as soon as they reply. I want to give them a call up, say, "Hey, I'm Santiago. I'm the guy who's just sent you an email," right? Like you want to be as human in the most important moments. But I wouldn't have a human send out a million DMs, right? Because AI can do that just as good as him, if not better, right? I wouldn't have a human blast off 1,000 cold emails a day because I would be wasting money. And not to mention, AI could probably do that a lot better. But AI can't cold call better. It can't emulate yourself better. So on the outbound side, we want to get a human in there at the first moment of interest. Now, on the content side, what we want to do, and it varies from person to person. I think a lot of even the great writers are using AI in their writing, but they know how to prompt
Mhm.
it and they know what data to give it, right? So I don't think, I mean, there's still people out there writing everything purely off their brain, but what you want to do is you just want to make it specific to you and relevant to your audience. And so what we do is we use AI to monitor what our audience is listening to, and we monitor our own objections, and your personal story tied in with that is what makes it unique. Right? That's what separates it from just an AI written post to a personal post. And even if you wrote it with AI, as when you have all the relevance from both sides and your own story on it, it makes it personal to you.
Fantastic. Wow. Well
Yeah.
said. Well said, Santi. Absolutely.
Thank
You
you. Yeah.
mentioned tools. You mentioned, different AI platforms.
Hmm.
So, what do you think is a good kind of comprehensive tech stack? Because people using
Oh,
it, right? And again, everyone overwhelmed. And you mentioned, vendors attacking every leader, right, with their fantastic solutions.
exactly.
Question is, what's kind of bare minimum that's covering most of these tasks? And I know it's going to change tomorrow. All right.
Yeah, it
But
changes
yeah,
all the time, and I spend a lot of money on tools that I don't need to find the few tools that I do need.
we're
Right?
all guilty. We're all guilty as
Exactly.
charged.
It's
Yeah.
always worth it. I have fun testing tools. So, and I would say if I had a budget of $500 and I was looking for the best tools to get the best bang of out of my budget, I would go to Maildoso and I would buy 70 domains for $175. I would get instantly, and that would be $100. And so right there, you have your outbound. You would have to get the data, but that's not going to be a monthly expense. I would, if I was doing a mass sending, I'd get Apollo data and I would verify with Million Verifier. If I was doing more granular sending, I would use Phantom Buster, which is about 50 a month. And I would scrape from Google Maps or Facebook, or better yet, I would scrape my best competitor. I'd scrape their followers and get their emails. I'd run it through Clay, which is about $159 a month. I'd run it through Clay for 150 and enrich all the data. So right now we're at about $450 a month, and then I would get Trigify for $50 a month, so I can listen to the signals in my market, and I could listen to the signals in terms of buying signals like hiring, funding, investing, and all that stuff. So that would be my basic go-to-market tech stack. $500 a month. I think a lot of business owners can budget $500 a month, but the results it get are well worth it. But what I will say, Irene, is the tools are the tools. It's really the strategy behind the tool that gets the results.
Totally brings my next point about challenges and guardrails. Okay, because the risks over automation, you kind of brought it up already, right? That
Yeah.
again, right, your reach becomes impersonal, not interesting, boring, and it just waste of money and time, right?
Yeah.
So could you please maybe give us some, I don't know, some common risks that people should kind of mitigate and maybe some solutions? Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of risks, I would say the biggest risk people are running is ruining their personal brand. And, you see it happen when people lazily use tools. All right, I'm not going to use Triggerify to monitor what the market's using. I'm not going to spend $50. Chat GPT's for free. I'm just going to write a post with that, right? Like that's going to hurt your brand at the end of the day. And at the same time, it's typically when people cheap out that you get the worst results. So I would say that's one of the risks that you would run. But what I will say though is that, there's not too many risks from a marketing aspect in using these tools. I would say if you're looking at risks, it's probably more on the security and data, the data side, like of your own personal data and maybe connecting these tools to your email and whatnot, where you would run a risk. But honestly, that's a separate part of business that I have no clue about. And I don't have the capacity to focus on because I'm solely focused on the go-to-market. So I would say your personal brand being ruined by either sending bad copies or by posting bad content is probably the biggest risk you will run, but that's not an irreversible risk.
Yep, tomorrow is another day, right? You can fix
Exactly.
mistakes. Yeah, I get it. No, thank you. Very helpful. Santi, in closing, okay, what's one thing listeners should audit in their current go-to-market this week? Okay, what's the immediate point? I know it's
No, that's a great question. I would look to automate how much time I'm spending researching, right? I think researching is the first thing I look at when I go into a business. How much is your team spending researching their prospects? How much are they spending getting the right data, right? Because data in 2026 should be a given. And I've walked into teams, well, they'll have someone onboarded for 2 months, 60 days, and they've spent the whole time researching their ICP. And I just kind of think researching is kind of like when people are just on the edge of the cliff and they don't want to jump. So they're just like making sure like, oh, I want the wind to die down, but they're never gonna like take the leap, because it's scary to take action. It's easy to sit in the research phase. And I think the research phase kills time. And as business owners know, like time is the most valuable resource we have.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, it's almost right over preparing, right? Instead of acting
exactly.
and trying, right? And learning from your mistakes and keep experimenting. Because if you're not doing that, what you said, Santi, you're in your own business, right? If you just keep researching, right?
It happens. I mean, I see it all the time, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah, fabulous. So where people can find you, okay, and learn more about MaribouPartners?
Yeah, so I have my website, MaribouPartners.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn. It's Santiago Faus, but I'm actually active on all my socials. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. I post business content on all of them. I used to be against posting business content outside of LinkedIn, but as you can hear from me, Irene, I'm a little bit obsessed with go-to-market and AI. So I can't help but share that side of myself in all my platforms. So yeah, you can find me on any platform. I'm super responsive and I genuinely would love to see who's on the other side of the screen. So those are my
fantastic
socials.
If that works for you, hey, right, that's why we have all these tools. Figure out, right, what's working for us. And final thoughts, please, maybe a few key takeaways to remember this conversation by.
So final thoughts, I would say be curious, be very curious about the tools that are on the market, because I don't know when you might be listening to this, but if it's 6 months ago, things could have completely changed. But I would say get curious about what captures the attention of the people you want to get in front of and where those people are sitting. Because attention is the first step in the buyer's journey. And if you can get their attention in a positive manner and not a way that makes them want to block your profile or, block your email domain, that's the key takeaways. I would say the tools are just a tool that we leverage to do that, but it still is the same marketing tactics and marketing is still the same, whether it was in the 1900s or in 2026 or in 2040. So.
Beautiful, beautiful. I so thank you very much, Santi, for your time today. This is enormously insightful, interesting. I got so much positive and practical advices from you
Thank
today.
you.
I'm sure audience will find the value. Thank you, Santi. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Irene. It was fun.